And welcome back, fourth and long fans. It's your footy correspondent, Coach Donnie, has here back with another AFLW round review. Round two is in the books. Scary to think we are already 20% of the way through the AFLW season. Darn you, 10 rounds, but you know what? We're going to enjoy it. Ladies and gentlemen, here we go. As per usual, one of my great go co-hosts today will be Miss Allie Collette. Allie, thank you for joining me again.
Thank you for having me.
All righty, let's get right into it. Round two is come, it has gone. Unfortunately, it is marred, but not really quickly before we dive into the nitty gritty. What were your thoughts on round two? Nine more games. We have some 2 and O's, we have some 0 and 2s, and we have some 1 and 1s. What are your thoughts?
It was an interesting round. There were a few matches where I went, "Oh, that was not how I expected that to play out." But yeah, it was a fascinating round nonetheless.
It was very much so. So let's, you know what? Let's dive right into it. Let's jump right into it. And I know you're going to have a lot to say on this one. First game of the round, Friday night, your beloved Melbourne Demons, again in a thriller against the North Melbourne Roos, get a 26-24 win. Break it down, Ali. What was good? What was bad? What were your thoughts on the curtain raiser, shall we say, to the men's final with this Melbourne Demons versus North Melbourne epic matchup on Friday?
Firstly, the last thing I see it is as a curtain raiser, but that's just me. Um, it was an interesting one because Melbourne should have kicked straighter. That would have been appreciated. Um, but yeah, it was an interesting one. It was scrappy at times, but the resolve of Melbourne's, particularly defenders, to just not crush. That's not quite the word I'm looking for, but the amount of defensive pressure that they had in those last couple of minutes after Bannon's goal was exceptional. So that was, but full credit to North. They stuck with the D's all night, and yeah, they could have just as easily won as well. So yeah, I would
Yeah,
appreciate it if they stopped having such close encounters, but that's just me as a fan talking.
it's the North Melbourne thing. Is this like it's as they stated on the coverage? It was like every time they play North Melbourne, it's always a close game. It's always a tight one. And as you said, it's kicking straight 3-8. Like if they don't kick those eight behinds, North Melbourne wins this, going shooting 4-0 in it. So it's a very interesting game that you can pick up the win. You can be a little less than effective when it comes to it, but I think it's a good test for this D's team. I think there's a lot of hype going into this season, so it's good to get a test. And for me, I think this strengthens North argument that they are definitely a top of the tier finals team, if not maybe knocking on that door of the top three of Adelaide, Melbourne, and Brisbane in that the flag contendership little group of three. We jump to the Swinburne Center, and holy criminally, this game had me on the edge of my seat for the longest time. I was sitting here going, "Am I gonna watch the Richmond Tigers pull the upset of the round and knock off the Crows?" And darn you, Crowies found a way to get it done. 36-27, a 9-point win. But I'm going to take it like this. This was less on the Crows winning this, but this was a little bit on Richmond just falling short. But I'm for an 0-2 Tigers team. This is one of the teams I'm still saying keep an eye out for finals, because that was a great performance. They just fell a little bit short. The Crows' class and skill was what got them over the line on this one.
Oh, 100%. They could have just as easily been 2-0 instead of 0-2, the Tigers. They're far out. The fact that they mashed them for so long and just fell short. I would be worried if I was Richmond's next opponent, because they're going to come out as hungry as ever, because they're going to be so annoyed that they've just missed out on the win 2 weeks in a row.
Yeah, it'll be very fascinating. And again, you test that metal. Like it's the weird thing about this 10 round season is that it, so there's some people saying, well, if you're 0-2, you're in big time trouble. I still think if Richmond can go on a run, they can still make finals, because I still think there's going to be a few losses in the mid table. I think there's going to be enough parity there. I think they have a chance, but man, that's got to be frustrating for them. 2 games, two really, really close games, just couldn't get over the hump. I think when they get a win, get some confidence in this group, keep an eye out for those Tigers. We jump over to Port Adelaide, and I don't want to go there. I really don't. But man, was this game hard to watch, especially with the gruesome injury that happened. And it kind of dampens a very good Dougie's performance, a little off kilter when it comes to finding the big sticks, kicking 310 and only 28 points, but a dominant 28 to 9, 19-point win. So man, was this frustrating because the huge half an hour loss with the double leg break late in that second quarter.
Yeah, that's one way to dampen things, but full credit to the Bulldogs. They came out, they were able to keep composed and run out the win. And for Port, they need to work on that last quarter ill discipline, because that's 2 weeks in a row now that they've almost conceded 10 free kicks in that last quarter alone. It was 9 in round one, and I think it was 8 over the weekend. So yeah, I think, yeah, Port need to work on that ill discipline. Dogs, like the D's, need to kick straight.
100%. We jump out west to, I mean, I'm gonna say it was the surprise. I tipped it, but this was the surprise of the round because of the score. Final score: Geelong Cats out west at Fremantle over 27. Fremantle Dockers one behind. It is a dubious record to have, but this I feel so horrible for the Dockers women, because they are snake bitten with injuries. They are just I don't know the words to say how frustrating it's got to be for some of their leaders, because they just can't get any continuity, because injury after injury after injury is just hampering this team.
Yep, that's yep. It's just, I coming into the round, I was like, okay, Freo are going to bounce back. Watch out, Geelong. This is going to be a painful one. Nope, that's quite the opposite to what we got on Saturday. But yeah, this, if Freo haven't thrown the season away already, you can't help but wonder how long it'll be till they do, because no Antonio's. Well, Bowers had COVID just before the season started. O'Sullivan's now gone down with injury. She'll miss at least a week. I don't know if it'll be 2. So you've got like your Anya Tides and your Haley Millers doing well, but yeah, if they don't bounce back against West Coast this week, yeah, might be in a bit of trouble here.
Well, it's the Western Bulldogs at Icon Park. Not
Oh
exactly a
yeah,
greeting.
sorry,
Yeah.
I'm getting my weeks mixed up.
You're good, not a problem. Now, Western Bulldogs Friday night. So it's like I have a hard time seeing them not being 0-3. And I think,
Yeah.
unfortunately, one of the teams that I think most people expected to be in the finals, that 0-3 start may be just a little bit too deep. We jump from the lowest score to probably, you got to say, game of the round for sure. Carlton go into Bomberland and get a 1-point win, 32-31. What an epic game this was, coming down to the wire. Fantastic game by the Blues, getting their first win of the season. And Essendon seems to defy the one kind of thing that all of us have kind of discussed when it comes to the expansions, is the fourth quarter fade. Essendon's been the fourth quarter team. They've come alive in the fourth quarter, bringing a game that looked to be out of reach back to within nail biting chances of actually getting the 4 points.
Yeah, what a comeback from Essendon. They've put the foot down in the last quarter 2 weeks in a row now. But yeah, as much as a good Carlton are on the board and such, they almost aren't on the board. So that that's something that hopefully they've looked at this week, because yeah, you can't, I mean, you can't really afford to do that against someone like an Essendon. But if you're coming up against more competitive sides, yeah, that's a bit of a concern. Because
Mhm.
Carlton had it in the looked like they had it in the bag, and then Yeah, that fourth quarter.
Yeah, it got away from Maddie Prasparkas got open, got going a little bit. And that really kind of started to turn the tide, which was really interesting. But Carlton hold on by the skin of their teeth, and they move on. They get the win after that tough loss to Collingwood in the first round. Speaking of Collingwood, we jump on over to Victoria Park, where Collingwood get a 45-14 win over the Swans. And as I was telling Ali pre podcast, I guess I'm the eternal optimist. I saw a lot of positives from this Sydney team. I know it's 45-14, it's a 31-point loss, but this was a much closer game until the third and fourth quarters when you could tell that the class of Collingwood started to kind of take hold. Sydney's defense stayed so strong for the longest period of time. As I was telling Ali, who is a massive Melbourne supporter, Brianna Tarrant, who came from Melbourne, I think she had one of her best games. She played Sav Frederick so well, cut her off, did not let her get much of a sniff when it came to the footy most of the game. So I gave her my hat tip of the round for me because she did an excellent job. That was fantastic. The issue they just ran into is Chloe Malloy got going in the middle, and there was nothing much they could do. And then again, the superstars of Collingwood started to come in the Jamie Lamberts, the Imogen Everts, the Chloe Malloy started to really get going. Ruby Schleicher and Co in the back, just literally anytime it went forward, it came right back. So tough game for the Swans again, but I'm seeing some building blocks that I'm very, very happy with.
That's good because in the situation the Swans are at, you can't help but you need to be an eternal optimist because you're just not going to enjoy watching the footy otherwise because you know that the Swans aren't at the level of other clubs. So you've got to be realistic, but you've got to stay positive. So yeah, and the fact that Sydney got out to that excuse me, got out to that good start as well because they got the first goal and the transition out of the middle was really impressive. So you've got you've just got to take, particularly from these first couple rounds, just take these little positives. And as Scott Gowan said pre-season, they're just trying to find the benchmark at the moment, and they'll just keep growing from there.
Yeah, it'll be fun. And the best part is they go into a battle of the bridge at Sydney against GWS this week. That'll be fantastic. And on the SCG. Cannot wait. So we jump back up to, and speaking of GWS, we come up to, and again, GWS, they change coaches, they change styles, and unfortunately they run into the buzzsaw that is the Brisbane Lions 67-20, a 47-point win. And Brisbane Lions have basically told this competition, look out, we are coming.
Yep. They have clearly not taken their prelim final exit from last season very well, but this was an interesting one because GWS actually had a brilliant first quarter and Brisbane didn't score until a final kick after the quarter time siren and didn't score a goal until the second. But then once that goal came,
The
floodgates
floodgates
opened a
open.
bit and GWS just couldn't keep up. So full credit to Brisbane, but I think GWS should take that first quarter as a massive positive.
Mhm. Yeah, I agree. It was a great start, and I think Brisbane kind of it took them a little bit to going. It was almost like a diesel engine. Once they got going, they went and they kept going. Unfortunately, and that was a very interesting game for sure. We jumped to another one that kind of like the Port Adelaide Western Bulldogs, a game mired in injury. Unfortunately, considering two Hawthorn Hawks go down with injuries and a St. Kilda with two knees and a broken ankle, and it kind of marred this game a little bit for the Box Hill Oval, first ever home game for the Hawthorn Hawks, and they fall to St. Kilda 63-10. I'm gonna ask you this really quickly. Is this St. Kilda showing that they are a legitimate finals contender, or is this them capitalizing on two expansion teams at just the right time of the season?
An interesting one. I think we'll be able to answer that question better after this coming weekend because as much as the Saints have looked impressive so far, they haven't really had a challenge. So the fact that they've got one of the premiership contenders this weekend will say a lot about where they're really at.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you on this one. I think a little bit of I think a little bit of capitalizing on a Hawthorne team that the two injuries that they had were big, big injuries. Tamara Luke going down,
Mm,
absolutely. That was a killer. And as early as it was
yeah.
to put them down a rotation, I think it really, really hurt that Goddard squad. We jump up to Metricon where I'm going to say this was kind of an upset. I was not, I after maybe I fell for West Coast knocking off Port a little bit. I tipped West Coast in this, and the Gold Coast Suns get a 33-point win over the West Coast Eagles, 47-14. I mean, no Sarah Perkins, who Allie Drennan and some of the and those Gold Coast Suns, they just played an incredible game. Lauren Bella again, fantastic in the ruck, absolutely great to see it. Gold Coast Suns, I tip my cap, big win. But again, did we fall for West Coast beating Port, or is Gold Coast maybe finally kind of figured out how to handle life without Sarah Perkins up front?
Yeah, it's an interesting one because West Coast aren't the best travelers. Gold Coast are brilliant at Metricons. So there's a couple of different factors that pointed to a Suns win, which I think I tipped. I don't remember. I don't remember which way I tipped in this one, but it, yeah, it's an interesting one. It'll be good for morale considering how things went in round one. That the Gold Coast did get the win. As for West Coast, there may be a reality check. I'm not really sure. It's hard. It's interesting. It's hard to tell in the first couple of rounds sometimes where teams really sit because, especially with expansion, because new matchups, new teams, yeah, and short seasons rather mean that there isn't necessarily that past history between teams. So yeah, I can't remember who Gold Coast have got this week. So yeah, hopefully we are to get a better picture regardless
Gold
of where
Coast
Gold Coast are.
has the Q clash with Brisbane.
Oh, I stand corrected.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Q clash with
Oops.
Brisbane at the GABA is this week's game. So, but we'll discuss that. We'll discuss that a little bit later. As I kind of mentioned with Brian last week, is that in my AFL men's competition ones we have fill in the blank, and I loved this topic because I think it's a great way to get kind of my guest host thoughts on some of the topics of the previous round. So Ali, we're going to play fill in the blank. There's either going to be a blank in the middle, the start, or the end of the sentence. You can fill it with anything: a word, a sentence, a thought, a grunt, whatever. So here's where we go. Fill in the blank. First question: Frio should be blank after another loss this past round.
Concerned
And why is that?
because even with all their injuries, they should have beaten Geelong, but they
I
didn't, and
I
they
will
didn't
not
score.
I will not disagree with you on that, but you got to give Geelong credit though, as
Yeah, true.
they really did play the kind of the perfect game, and the conditions were woeful, and it's going to happen
Yeah,
unfortunately, and I think it almost gave Geelong a little bit of a step up because it was more like a Geelong day than it was a Western Australian or Perth day. So I thought that was a rather interesting one. So second question here: blank is the winless team after round two that can still make finals.
Richmond, because
All
they could have just as easily been 2-0.
all righty. And then our last and the third question, and I'm interested to see what you think of this. It is Indigenous round in round three. And as per usual, we have gorgeous, absolutely fantastic Indigenous jerseys being premiered. So of the Indigenous jerseys you have seen, of all the Indigenous jerseys, blank is my favorite.
I don't know if I can actually answer this because I haven't seen many of them.
Well,
I kind of
I can answer this.
by default have to say Melbourne because that's about the only one I've seen.
I love Adelaide's. I thought Adelaide's is really, really awesome because they have both. I think they kind of went off the mutual clubs, the men's and the women's scissors, the men's hands and the women's hands. in it. I've seen Sydney's. I think it's absolutely fantastic. Carlton's is really cool. I haven't seen a ton of them myself, but all the ones that I have seen, I love. Brisbane's was really, really well done. I think that was fantastic. So, again, I love the Indigenous jerseys. I think they're absolutely fantastic. I love the initiative. I think it's absolutely tip top that they are doing this. So it'd be fantastic to see that come here. And that will be the end of the fill in the blank section of the podcast. We jump to it. I do it every week. I do team of the round, and my co-host here is very intrigued because I kind of I gave her the chance to make her own, but she's just a tiny bit busy with her job. So she is hearing this for the first time, and I can't wait to see what her thoughts are on this. So we jump to it. Round two, team of the round. I always start on defense. I'm a coach. I start on defense. So my defenders are as follows. It's hard not to say it. Chelsea Randall, Adelaide Crows. Fantastic game by her. She did absolutely fantastic for the Crows in, I think, a little bit tougher game than I think Adelaide was expecting against Richmond, but she stepped up for her team, helped the Crows get a win. Brisbane's Nat Grider. I think she played another fantastic game in a little bit of a hot first quarter, but then kind of settled down. And again, Brisbane, fantastic team. Hard not to go there. I specifically texted her Hawthorne's Eileen Gilroy. I still consider her a defender. She got the only goal for Hawthorne
Hmm.
in the game, but she's been primarily playing defense for the Hawks this year. So she will get one of the spots. St. Kilda's Bianca Jacobson is another one. A huge game for the Saints there. And last but not least, you kick a goal as a defender, you get a spot on my team of the week. And that is the recently married Beth Keeney of the Gold Coast Suns. I got to give her a huge goal for the Gold Coast Suns to help them get a big win over the West Coast Eagles. We go to the Ruck. I mean, I can't right now. It's hard not to say she's not on her way to another All Australian. That's Bree Moody of the Carlton Blues. Again, another fantastic game for the Carlton Ruckman. We go to the mids, and it is star, star, star. I don't think I'm jumping too far off this. Essendon's Maddie Prasparkas, another fantastic game for the Bombers midi. Chloe Malloy, I have to give her credit. When you make scoreboard impact a goal behind it in several plays that I think really helped Collingwood get that win over it, I got to tip her a little bit. GWS's Alice Parker, fantastic game. She doesn't kick many goals, so when she kicks a goal, it's hard not to put her in, especially when you have the disposal machine that is Alice Parker. Emily Bates, you kick 2 goals for one of the best teams in the league. It's hard not to say that she's not there. And then I give a tip to Gold Coast Allison Drennan. She also got a goal in her game for the Gold Coast Suns. And again, middies don't kick a lot of goals in AFLW, so you get a little bit of love from Coach Hess on the team of the week. We jump to the forwards, and my criteria, Allie, is simply who kicks the most goals out of the forwards. So we start off Carlton's Darcy Vesio, as per usual. They are in the squad with 3 goals in that game against Essendon. Brisbane's Greta Bodie kicking 2 goals for the Brisbane Lions. St. Kilda's Caitlin Greiser, St. Kilda's Kate Sheilor, and Gold Coast Courtney Jones round out the forwards as the starters. We jump to the bench. And here's how I set up my bench, Allie. I have a defender, a ruck, a midfielder, a forward, and what I call a utility, a player that can be any of the 3 that I think has had a great game. Defender Jordan Allen from the Collingwood Magpies. Rucks Olivia Fuller. I think she played really well for the Geelong Cats, and I think she really made an impact for the Cats, helping them get it. Also from Geelong, midfielder Nina Morrison. As I said, you kick a goal for your team as a midfielder, you get a lot of love from Coach Hess and the team of the week. Abby Ballard from the Adelaide Crows. And my utility, I got a lot of Geelong love for this one, and that's Amy McDonald. Another fantastic game for her, and she is my utility, and that is my 21 of the team of the week of round 2. Allie, what do you think?
Interesting mix. Can't help but notice no D love there, but that's just me. Um, I'm glad you put Amy McDonald in there because she's one of those players that she keeps topping the stats for Geelong and yet still doesn't rate a mention somehow often. So yeah, I'm glad you put her in there.
Yeah, she was a great one. My utility last week was I think it was Sarah Hosking, because I think she had an incredible game for the Richmond Tigers there. And I looked at the D's. There's a lot of it was a very even game for the D's. There wasn't that superstar standout. They had some high disposals, but after that it was like one goal, one goal, one goal. So it was like it was hard And Libby Birch had a great game. I almost got her in there, but I think it was just one of those where some of the performances, like Nat Grider, Bianca Jacobson, had a few more disposals, a little more impact on the game. So, but again, the D's they're a well balanced team. It's hard to really have that superstar moment. Even though Alyssa Bannon's goal, I think, was a fantastic goal. I probably could have snuck her in there if we had a few less 2 goal kickers in this particular round. So we jump from that to the tips. This is always my favorite part because we see how do we think this round is going to go. We jump right to it. We kind of discussed it earlier. Western Bulldogs at Icon Park hosting the hapless and injury riddled Fremantle Dockers. Is there any way the Dockers come to Victoria and get a win, or do the Doggies get another big win on the board and another 4 points in the ladder?
I think, yeah, something has to go completely wrong for Freo to get the win. They're just missing too many stars. It's in Melbourne, so yeah, I think the Bulldogs should do it easily.
I have the Doggies as well. If Fremantle had the injuries, did not have the injuries that they had, I would be a little bit more keen to pick them, but I am going to pick the Western Bulldogs in this one. We jump over to the Wigan Oval as Adelaide Crows host the North Melbourne Roos in what I would consider one of the more anticipated games of the round when it comes to just by matchups. And I like the Crows in this one, but man, did I look hard at the Roos there for a little bit after a good performance against the D's. I'm gonna tip the Crows, but I think the Roos are in this one. I think the Roos are up to their eyeballs in this one for sure.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, that's fair because it's in Adelaide, and Adelaide do have a better record against North, but at the same time, this is one of those matches where I'm like, if North do get the win, it won't be the biggest surprise in the world, if that makes sense.
Mhm. No, I agree. I think the way they played against the D's and the Crows kind of a little vulnerable against Richmond, I think makes me think I think North's in this with a shot. I think Adelaide wins it, but I think North's in this with a shot. We jump up the Sydney Cricket Ground, hosts the Sydney Swans versus the GWS Giants, the Battle of the Bridge, the Sydney Derby, however many nicknames they try to throw at this thing because it's still young and growing, but I'm going to pick the Giants in this one again. Giants are a little bit more experienced, a little bit more talent, but if we keep seeing the progression, Sydney's going to get closer and closer in these games, and I still think there's a good shot Sydney wins a game this year if they keep their structure well. Not in this game, still a little early for it. I think GWS gets the win, but I'm super excited to see the 2 teams from Sydney play on the Sydney Cricket Ground. That'll be fantastic.
Yeah, it should be a stellar game, but yeah, I think you're right. I think GWS, although they've had their issues in the first couple of rounds, I think they are too experienced. But if Sydney can find a way to keep Cora quiet, that's going to go a long way to helping them get the win.
It'll be interesting to see Jess Doyle against her academy, some of the players that she played against in the academy. It will be an interesting look if she gets the hop up here. 2-2-0 teams lock horns at GMHBA Stadium as Geelong take on the Collingwood Magpies. Who do you like in this one?
I think this is going to be an interesting reality check for Geelong. I think Collingwood are a lot more experienced, should be too strong in this one.
It's the depth. I think it's the first 5 or 6. I think they're even. Your Nina Morrison's, your Georgie Pasparkases, your Georgie Rankins. Even I think you're even up, but it's your sixth, your seventh, and your eighth best players. I think is where Collingwood starts to kind of step away when it comes to class and overall skill. And when you've got Stacey Livingston, Ruby Slicer up back, it's going to cut off a team that has struggled still scoring the footy, kicking goals. So I like Collingwood in this one, even down at GMHBA Stadium. So I like the Pies in this one. As we said, up to the Gabba for the Q clash amongst the women's Brisbane Lions, Gold Coast Suns. Brizzy just too strong, Brizzy just too good.
Yep, and there've been a few lopsided results in this one in the past, and I can't see that being any different this time around.
Yeah, it wouldn't shock me. I mean, Gold Coast has got to get off to a great start to just stay in this game for sure. Brisbane, like I said, they're humming right now for sure. Jump back to Icon Park as Carlton hosts the upstart Port Adelaide Power. Who do you like in this one?
This is another intriguing one that could go either way. I think from memory, I tipped Carlton just because it's at Princes Park. But I think if Port can clean up their final quarter act, I think that's going to help a lot. Having no Gemma Houghton's not going to help, but yeah, I think it should be a very interesting game regardless.
This one bugs me because I just don't know if Carlton's got enough weapons up front to be able to put enough scoreboard pressure. And when Darcy Vesio up front will kick goals, Mimi Hill is absolutely a monster in the middle. I think Carlton just has a little too much. So I have the Blues getting the win in this one. We jump RESPA or RESA, RSEA. Eventually, I'm going to get this correct. RESA Park, St. Kilda hosting your beloved D's. I'm going to tip this one first because I'm pretty sure I know what your tip is. I'm going to tip Melbourne in this one, as you kind of said earlier. This is the reality check to St. Kilda. This is the welcome back to earth moment. You had two teams you should beat. You beat them. Melbourne win this one? Is it by a big margin or does St. Kilda stay in this? I think Melbourne wins this one. I think it's handy. I think it's 4 goals at least. This kind of reality checks a good St. Kilda team. I think now has a chance to fight for finals, but this is a step above where they're at.
Yep. I think a few past demons, no pun intended, should be buried. Should be buried this weekend. I think Melbourne will be too strong. It'll be a good test for St Kilda, but yeah, I think the D's girls should be just too strong.
Yeah, I completely agree with you there. Let's jump back to Punt Road, the Swinburne Center, and the team that we said is the most likely as 0-2 to find a way in the finals. And here's your game to get it started: Richmond, Hawthorn, Swinburne Center. I like the Hawks. I think the Hawks going up. I like Richmond in this one, going up against a Hawks team that is injured. They're low on confidence after being smashed by St. Kilda. This is not going to get any better when you've got the star-studded midfield in the center. Mon Conti, absolutely fantastic. I think this is where she starts to make her run. I think this could be big. Courtney Wakefield, I think, has a day out in this one. I think 3 or 4 goals for her. Richmond wins this one big.
Yeah, and that's a fair summary. And Richmond are going to be hungry because it's at home. They've had 2 close losses that could have easily just have been 2 wins. So yeah, I'm a little bit worried there for the Hawks.
Yeah, perfect opponent after 0-2 start. Perfect opponent. We jump out. Mineral Recesses Park out in the west. Here we go. Another interesting test here, and another I think is a tipster's nightmare. West Coast, Essendon Bombers. Who do you like in this one?
Yeah, I tossed and turned about this for a while, but I think ultimately I'm going to go Essendon in maybe an upset. Not quite sure if you'd call it an upset, but from what I've seen from Essendon this year, they've impressed me more than West Coast have. Yes, it's at West Coast, but I think Essendon should just be too strong.
And I 100% I'll raise my hand for probably the past 2 days. I think I've switched this tip 3 times because I first tipped Essendon and I was like, I don't know, it's out west. West Coast played really well at home against Port. I tipped West Coast. I thought about it and I went, Bonnie Two Goods, much different. Georgia G, Maddie Persparkas, there's some superstar power. They've played well. Great fourth quarter. Back to Essendon. So I've changed this tip at least twice. I'm going to stay with that. I'm going to stay with Essendon just because, as we kind of stated, their fourth quarter flurries have been a revelation, shall we say, for an expansion team. Usually that's when they have the fourth quarter fade. So if West Coast can't get a big lead like Carlton and be able to withstand that fourth quarter push, which I almost expect now because it's kind of the DNA. It's kind of like Collingwood in the men's. It's you expect that comeback. It's in their DNA. If Essendon is within 2 goals going into that fourth quarter, if I'm West Coast, I'm a little worried because they push and they push and they push in that fourth quarter. They seem to be a very good fourth quarter team. I'm going to tip the Dons in this one. I think they get a big road victory and kind of put themselves in a nice little spot in the ladder going into the thick part of this fixture. So that is all 9 games tipped, Ali, in a very intriguing round of footy with some big. I have to say, I love it. Icon Park, Sydney Cricket Ground, the GABA. I mean, wow. I mean, this is. I think this is going to be an incredible round of footy, Indigenous round of footy. How pumped are you going into this? Because there's some chances for some interesting results.
Yeah, I'm excited and intrigued because we're gonna see where a few of the teams are at. There could be some upsets for a winner, and yeah, bring on the weekend.
Cannot wait. Absolutely cannot wait. Well, ladies and gentlemen, this has been another AFLW round review. As per usual, keep an eye out. We keep it going on. Keep it up next very soon. Our men's finals, first round of the finals review will be coming out very, very soon. An incredible round of footy. Keep up for that. As you just came out, Kirby Fenwick, an interview from Siren Sports. I just had a fun, amazing chat with her. That has just come out. Please keep an eye on that. And as per usual, keep track next week. We will review round 3, and we will see you again next week.